Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War with my good friend Garry Adelman. And Garry, we're at a really cool spot.
Yes, we are out on the Esplanade behind the gorge wall at Fort Sumter with permission.
And this is a spot folks don't normally get to see, but this is really kind of one of the most historic spots in the whole fort.
It really is because, I mean, this is the gorge wall. This is where the Sally Port was. All those pictures you see about it. You've got the original wharf, some remnant of it going out. It was 180 feet beyond the Esplanade at the time. So really cool to come to the side. Not to mention that you have great views of James Island and Morris Island as well.
I see Morris Island over your shoulder in that direction.
Indeed. Yeah. Battery Greg, Battery Wagner.
So now, you brought up a really interesting point a few minutes ago as we were talking with folks here, and a very commanding...
I'm trying to be Civil War.
Right, very good, yeah. About this being a turning point of the war.
Well, come on, we all talk about, it's an either-or thing. Do you think it's Gettysburg and Vicksburg, or do you think it's Antietam and Perryville? One of those two. Other people, I've even heard people talk about the Heartland Campaign of Tennessee, like that's one of the turning points. But I was talking to Rick Hatcher once, who was a longtime ranger and historian here, and man, he said the ultimate turning point is Fort Sumter. And man, did he drop the mic. Because of course it is. Is there a bigger turning point than that, or maybe Appomattox Bennett Place? Yeah,
but starting the war, that's a huge, huge turning point in American history.
So go ahead and argue among your Civil War nerd friends of a bigger turning point than Fort Sumter.
Now, one of the other things that's been cool for me to be out here with you today is you've shown pictures of the first Confederates ever photographed.
Yes, the blockade works. The Confederates, early in the war, those photographers, and there's 5 in Charleston on King Street alone, and they had a lot of chemicals photochemicals and glass plates when it first started. So they came out to Fort Sumter. The first photos taken in the Civil War were shot by Southern photographers of Southern subjects. They show Southerners inside Fort Sumter, the floating battery, the front of Fort Sumter, and they immediately advertised those in the papers, and I think they sold well. Soon, after other photographers had gotten some good photos of Mississippi and other troops around Pensacola, Florida, a couple others elsewhere, it really dries up. And for the rest of the war, any Confederates you show are either in portrait studios or they are dead or captured, taken by Northern photographers. 90% of Civil War photos are taken by Northern photographers of Northern subjects that was within the Union bounds of control. You shouldn't have asked me that. I'll go on for an hour.
Well, I think it's so cool because, they're important documentary evidence pieces for us, but they were commercial opportunities for those photographers.
And that's why we can look at them today. It's not because of the generosity of the photographers, because people bought these prints, and enough of those have survived where we can use them, learn from them, and in some cases gawk at them. And sometimes imitate them, and then some weirdos actually take them back to the place where they were photographed and go, ooh, look at that.
Ooh. Now, as I look across in that direction, I'm looking at some ground that the trust has preserved down here. Let's give a little pitch for the preservation.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, if you don't have the land, it's a lot harder to interpret things, and the trust was able to preserve it at very little cost. Our partners really stepped up on this one. A key acre or two right on a tip of James Island, right near Fort Johnson, the area where the first shot came from, exploding over Fort Sumter. And we have an opportunity to get some more. Some of y'all might get an email or something in the mail about that in the future.
Garry, always a treat to be out here with you, man. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you here in Charleston, which also has fantastic food.
Oh, great food city. And we're going to go try some now. I'm Chris Mackowski with Garry Adelman. Thanks for being with us here in Emerging Civil War. We'll see you online and on the battlefield.